I'm speaking with Jonathan Ray. Jonathan, would you please put into perspective what just transpired here in front of the Ft.Wayne Urban League?
It was a great day. It was a commitment first by Glenn Hines as a board member of CityLink to ask them to put a historic seat cover of Rosa Parks on all of their big buses. So they have 31 buses that carries the name of Rosa Parks. And Rosa Parks represents the first transformative moment in the civil rights movement. There were a lot of protests, but the bus boycott created change, and a change that never was repeated again. I mean, at the end of the day, her willingness to not get up when she was asked to spurred a bus boycott that lasted more than a year that caused the bus company to actually relent. So they relented not because they felt like it was the right thing to do, or I mean, this is no one who pays one rate should sit on somewhere else on the bus. They relented because they were losing money. One reality was, at the time, black people had to pay for their bus in the front, and then they had to get off the bus and get on the side door. And many times, that bus left them. My father grew up in the segregated South, and he experienced that.
But why now? Why the desire now to acknowledge this history?
Whenever it would happen, it would be the right time. Rosa Parks' story is lost. The good thing about today is someone can go on that bus and see the Rosa Parks seat cover that you can't miss it. And they'll look it up on their smartphone and they'll find out who Rosa Parks was and is.
So what is there's got to be an underlying message here. I mean, when you look back in history, there's often a reoccurring message. What message or lesson is learned by her example?
I don't think there's a message as it relates to the bus company doing this. I think clearly they did this at the behest of Glenn Hines, and that's why it's.
Oh no, I mean that's a great effort. That's a great thing that the bus company did. No, I meant in terms of standing up for your rights and what you believe in, because a lot of people have said that we're beyond that era, so it's best to forget it.
No, you never forget history, and that's the problem with a lot of black history. It is forgotten. People don't realize the contributions that African Americans did, not just whites and others, but African Americans don't know their history. And so anytime you can bring out someone who was as significant as Rosa Parks, it's the right time. But we're still in an era where protest is important, but it's always important to know your history. I mean, we start learning about American history in first grade, so clearly it's important.
So tell me about the legacy of Louis Sims.
Mr. Sims was one of the first, he was the first bus driver, black bus driver. And, we take those things for granted. But when he had that job, there was so much that he had to overcome in terms of being the first. There was a time in Ft.Wayne where African Americans only had service jobs that paid little money. And I don't know him personally, but I do know firsthand that being the first is a challenge.
Well, I know him personally, and I know factually that he and your mom were in the same era.
Mm-hmm.
And the things, growing up around your mom and the same early era of Ft.Wayne history, what impact has that made on you in your life?
I mean, I wish I could be as, my mother was just a super positive person. And the fact that she was the first African-American native hired in Ft.Wayne as a black educator, the significance of that was the fact that she was excellent. I mean, she was one of the best educators, period. So many times I'll see people that were taught by my mother and they'll say, well, she was their very best teacher and she made the difference in their life. That's what I saw. Now I know my mother probably had to deal with some things that others didn't, but she took it as a challenge only to be as positive and as good a teacher as she could possibly be.
Okay, and last thing, what message do you want to leave? After this experience today and looking back over time and seeing Condra here again and how she's so consistent in playing the Rosa Parks role, what do you want to leave with younger people who are just getting a strong grasp of the situation?
That you can change things. I mean, if you didn't know it, Rosa Parks changed things, along with the thousands of other minorities that refused to ride the bus until they had equal rights. So that transition of how the law changed allowed people the freedoms that they now feel and enjoy. What Rosa Parks did was she changed something that was illegal. You could be arrested. She was arrested for sitting on the bus. That seems unusual, but you know what? That wasn't that long ago. It was just 61 years ago that people didn't have the right to sit where they want. I think we fail to remember that really, I think one of the biggest freedoms we have in this country is the right to vote. And until you have the right to vote, you're truly not free. And that right to vote didn't happen until 1965. So when we think about how far we are away from an era of degradation and persecution, we're really not that far, and we have a long way to go.
Hey, Jonathan, I did have one more question I want to ask. What was this white line? What is that all about?
I think the thing people tend to believe is that there were sections that were official sections on the bus, a white section and a black section. That's not how it worked. The white line was wherever the last white person was sitting. So if a white person wanted to be a total jerk, they could go sit near the back of the bus and make it so every black person that got on the bus had to stand, even if there were empty seats that could be taken towards the front. So the reality was, the whole white line, it wasn't divided into sections. The white line was the last white person sitting. So the challenge for people was that, even if the bus was empty, they still might have to stand.
And if they didn't, they could be arrested?
If they didn't, they would be arrested. And I can tell you that was a tough transition for my father, who grew up in the segregated South, because even though he served in the military, the Korean War, based out in California, on his way back on a furlough, he was used to being free, used to functioning as a officer in the military. And when he got in the South, he was expected to get in the back of the bus. And he didn't. He took his life in his hand, but as a person serving this country, he decided at that point he was willing to die before he would sit in the back of the bus. And fortunately, because now I'm here, it didn't happen, and the bus driver decided to just drive and disregard the fact that my father was doing a form of civil disobedience.
Why don't we know more about the white line?
I think people, I don't know. I think anyone who grew up in the segregated South knows that. The problem with history, especially as it relates to black history and just history that's negative, we just don't know the details. And it seems to never get reduced to writing. But like I said, my father grew up in a segregated South and had to endure that, and I heard the stories.
And that's why blacks need to always keep talking, especially the older ones, about what happened in the past, because they know things that happened that the rest of us don't know, because they experienced it, and those things weren't written about, and that's why they need to be talking before they all leave here.
Absolutely. I didn't watch a whole lot of sports with my father, but we were watching, and I can't even tell you who won, what teams were in the NCAA basketball tournament last year. But I can tell you that I remember when Georgetown played North Carolina for the national championship. And I remember it only because my father was watching the game. He was from North Carolina. And the thing that he remarked more than anything is, wow, they have all these black players representing North Carolina. And as a veteran, it was against the law for me to attend that college. So that was the challenging thing for him. And you know, we talked about how he paid taxes for that state school. His parents paid taxes, but he didn't have the opportunity to attend because of Jim Crow laws. So those are things that are down to the nitty-gritty of how people live, and regrettably, it's not shared in school to know the challenges that African Americans had to endure to get from point A to point B.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much.